Great. So welcome to TONKOCAST number
11,
which is the first of 2017. Today we have multiple guests. We don't have a guest.
We have no guests.
Well, first of all, my name is Tsutsumi.
And I'm Robert Kondo.
And Zen Miyake.
And Courtney Lockwood.
And we thought this time around for this podcast, we would actually talk about our year in review, 2016. We're at the start of the new year.
And things to look forward to in 2017.
Yeah, and we asked Courtney to guide us in this kind of conversation. Maybe Courtney, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm the new production manager here at Tonko House, and I am going to turn the mic onto our fearless 3 leaders.
Yeah, before we get into it, we should talk a little bit about our amazing one of 3, Zen Miyake, who's been our business manager, general manager, COO, whatever we call it. He's been running Tonko House with us. For the first time, he's joining us on TONKOCAST.
Yes, and Zen is multi-talented. He's done a lot of things. In the beginning with us, Zen joined us to actually help us with building out the studio. And he would listen to us, probably very frustratingly, talk about business and how to build a studio. And found a nice, gentle way to join that conversation. And we realized that Zen actually had a lot to offer to Tonko House in building out this studio, not just physically building it out, but...
Right, when Robert meant the building is actually carpentry work. Zen used to be a professional carpenter, and he ran video production business and opened restaurants, like a Michelin star high-end restaurants, and he's done a lot of things he hasn't told us yet also.
Yeah, every time we hang out, I feel like we learn about one other job he did this one
Every
summer.
time. We don't know how many years he's lived.
Yeah.
But yes.
10,043 years.
Yes. Does that cover it, Zen?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Just the
It's a good
1%.
start.
Yeah.
We'll see if this
Yeah.
podcast reveals one more job he did.
All right. So, first question, and this is to anybody. What has been the highlights of 2016? It was a pretty big year for Tonko House.
Well, let's go over the projects we've done in 2016. We've done
good.
quite a bit. First of all, Moom hit the markets, film festival market. Moom is our second short film from Tonko House after The Dam Keeper. It's a 14-minute short, animated short film that started hitting film festivals last year, and actually got into over 70 festivals and won, I think, 26 awards so far, and it's been just incredible. Also, graphic novel.
Right, the graphic novel. We got into full swing on the production of the graphic novel with First Second. We've got 3 books that we're working on, and the first book got turned in May, so it'll be published next fall. We're really excited about that. We're really happy with the way the first book turned out, and the team at First Second has just been incredible to work with. So we're excited about that. This time last year, we were also beginning to really get into planning our first exhibition in Tokyo.
That's right. That was an incredible experience. For me, like, that was kind of like my highlight. Like, an exhibition that we did in Tokyo was just such a memorable. It wasn't a gallery, but it really felt like a museum exhibition, thanks to the G8 gallery in Ginza. They gave us a lot of freedom and support.
Yeah, and as much as I'd love to say, I think everything came together in the end, but there was moments of putting together that exhibition I remember of, like, Zen and I sitting on the train, still carving out wood, making, like, wood chips all over the train, and
That's actually an exhibition, the pieces that you guys exhibited that you had to make on the train.
Or staying up till 5 a.m.
the day before the opening.
Yeah, rubbing letters onto the wall.
That was hard.
That was
really
hard. Yeah.
I learned what 1010 were, which are like tiny little marks in the Japanese phonetic alphabet that are little marks attached to characters. And when you're rubbing on letters, those are the ones that get lost. But I can't tell because I don't read Japanese, so Zen would always have to go back over all my letters to find where I missed a 1010.
Right. And then we have to find them on the floor.
Yeah.
Totally.
And rub them on. Yeah. That was fun, right, Zen?
That was fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad we made it.
Yeah, the show ran for a month and we had over 10,000 people to visit, and it was an incredible turnout. And then what else?
Well, and the thing that we've been working on since the start of Tonko House is really the Dam Keeper feature. We've been working to develop on our own and working with a writer who's been amazing, and working with a producer who's been amazing as well. And we finally kind of made some real progress towards getting one step closer to our dream, which is, beginning talks with Fox, 20th Century Fox, to distribute our feature and finance our feature.
And I gotta say that we won't get into details today, but really going through shopping and pitching and talking to executives in Hollywood and finding out about all the system of filmmaking was such an educational journey for us, because we never had to deal with that before. And settling down with 20th Century Fox, who has a very different kind of leadership since I left Fox, about 10 years ago. I used to work for Blue Sky Studios. So it was just an incredible journey, and obviously we're still in the beginning of it with them, but very exciting to have the deal in place with them.
Absolutely. And I think that 2016 also, we have begun to plan to grow. I think that's the big project also at the end of the year, was to start to talk about how do we grow as a studio, how do we retain the things we love, and how do we change the things we don't love about the studio, and how do we grow into the studio we want to become. And I think Courtney was a big part of that. We brought Courtney on in November, and Courtney has been here, it feels like for a long time, but it's
true.
only
That's
been
very
like 2
true.
months.
Well, we worked with Courtney for many years before at Pixar, and even when Courtney was at Google, we always cast Courtney for our main character voice. Courtney is multi-talented as well, like Zen. She does acting, and she was the voice of Pig and Moon.
Yes, absolutely.
And obviously, we can't forget about Eric. Eric joining Tonko House was such a huge deal. Eric is one of the star animators from Pixar, and he joined Tonko House in October to start this amazing project, Hulu Japan project, Dam Keeper web series.
Yeah, and it's been really fun. Hulu Japan is it's going to be 2D animated, but not in the style of the Dam Keeper, not fully kind of painted frame by frame. It's kind of Eric's own style. And this is what I really love about where we are right now, is that we kind of get to play. I think the Hulu series is just a different feel, a different look, very specific to Eric. Really excited about what he's been doing and the work he's been doing and the team he's building. Cannot wait to share this with the world. But we don't know when. Sometime next year, hopefully.
Hopefully this year.
Oh, right, this year. It's 2017.
Well, it's due out this year in Japan, and we're still working out when that can be available for audiences outside of Japan.
Right. It's exciting.
But it's exciting, like just to have this many talents that we always admired slowly joining us, and we're looking to expand even more. And it is a fun, super crazy, a lot of work, and very tiring, but at the same time very rewarding journey that we had in 2016.
Yeah. Getting to build your own dream team is actually a huge fun thing to do, but it's also a responsibility. I feel like both you and I and Zen all feel like the more people we bring on, the more we have to kind of the studio has to live up to people's expectations of what we set out to do and stick close to what they see in the studio as well. So that's been fun and challenging.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Yeah. So let's kind of go into that. What are your hopes for 2017? You talked about, kind of pivoting the studio and, making sure that this culture, you want to preserve this culture. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I think 2017 for us will be the year that we're going to hopefully fully engage with the feature. That means Dice and I will probably primarily be focusing on the feature. But at the same time, too, there's a lot of great things that are happening outside of the feature that Zen has been kind of spearheading and overseeing. And that includes some of the content for YouTube, some of the content like this, the podcasts. And we want to just keep doing that because we love it, but also I feel like every time we put something out, it's a little bit of a promise to the world that also the audience out there holds us true to. So, we left Pixar 2.5 years ago now, and we left to go and tell our own stories and make a place where artists could come to tell their stories as well. And I think bringing Eric on has been a huge learning experience for us as to how to support an artist. And I can't say that we're doing it perfectly, but it looks like Eric's having fun from the outside, and we're definitely enjoying interacting with him and finding ways to help his project without making it our project, but letting it be his project and a Tonko House project at the same time. And we're discovering what that means and what that is. And I think as we bring on people, one of the first things we like to do as we bring on new people is talk about our vision for what we see for the future. Not just in terms of projects, but we have this mission about telling stories for the world that have a balance between entertainment and awareness. And that really means for us finding a way to connect with our audience and not be preachy, but talk about the world around us in a way that creates questions, I think.
Yeah, I'm curious what Zen-san, I think one of the things that we all look forward to, and it'll be a huge challenge, is that we have a flood of new talents coming to the studio. Actually, next week we have a few animators starting.
Yeah, Courtney just ordered a few machines and other softwares, and we need to set them up. And yeah, so we're getting ready for that. But at the same time, as a studio, we have to grow to really grow with them. So in other ends, we have to think about the way of growing together. And as far as the activity goes, it's not only the production part of it, but we'll be doing another exhibition in Japan, and hopefully one or two more maybe. And also we haven't really talked about the products that we released last year, but we will be working on some other products, and those are the other activities that Tonko House will do probably this year.
Yeah, I think this is probably the first time we talked about the exhibition in 2017. That's really cool. Tell us more about the exhibition in 2017. What are we expecting?
So we are now planning to do an exhibition in a little city called Ishinomaki in Japan, which is a northern part of Japan. And that's one of the cities where the big earthquake hit a few years back. And but there is a beautiful museum there, and we are working with that museum. And we are planning to open this exhibition in March.
Super exciting. Zen and I have been involved with this kind of a program where we get to interact with high school students from the earthquake affected areas in the past 5 years. And our motivation was always to go see the cities that got affected by it, the disaster, and then the museum in one of the cities is hosting Tonko's exhibition, and it's similar to what we had last year but bigger. And that's super exciting for sure, because we get to be a part of that community building, because the cities that got affected by the earthquake are still struggling to build back to where they were before. And if we can witness, or you can be a part of that building, it's just an exciting thing for us. And yesterday we had this meeting, and Robert did the sketch for the new exhibition, and oh my god, that was
amazing.
So exciting. Like I'm just so looking forward to it myself, because even though we had a fantastic run last year at G8 in Tokyo, this one is going to be even better, I think, and it'll be up for 3 months, so it'll be a long show.
Yeah, we're excited. There's a lot of work ahead. You know, I think there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we again, 2017 last year was, I gotta say, on a personal level, was challenging. I mean, we did a lot of different things. We pushed ourselves to different areas, artistically and creatively. I have to say, it's so satisfying. On a different level, running a business and kind of learning to grow a team and learning to balance things with, cash flow. I never had to think about cash flow at Pixar. But these things are so real, and this is also why we signed up to start our own business, I think, is to learn about the whole picture, what it takes to really build something sustainable and that can last through time. And the exhibition's no different. It's a huge choice. It's a huge decision as to how we spend our time and resources, and we really think that these exhibitions are important also because they keep us honest. They force us to articulate where we are right now, where we want to be, and we love opportunities for that. We love that there are groups in Japan that are supporting us and wanting to hear about it, and we don't want to take that for granted. So we want to do the best job we can with putting on an exhibition. It's one of the many things we're doing, but we don't want any of it to suffer. And I think that's where this year is really going to be critical, is how we spend our time, how we spend resources. And that's something I'm kind of excited about, but I have to say, if there's one thing right now I'm losing sleep over, it's really, oh my gosh, there's an onslaught of projects and an onslaught of people, and we have to grow, and to not make conscious choices about how we grow means that we're going to grow regardless. Change is going to happen, but if we're not kind of at the forefront of that, kind of helping to guide that, then it might grow out of our control too. So we're really excited, but I gotta say, with every opportunity comes a lot of weight and responsibility, and that's where it's really nice to be surrounded by people you trust and enjoy working with. And so 2017 is exciting, but I gotta say, I'd be lying if I said I was only excited.
Totally, I share your concern as well. Yeah, totally.
But yeah,
I mean, it's an interesting thing to talk about on this kind of animation industry podcast about cash flow, but it is a very real thing to me. It's one of those things.
It was a myth before.
Exactly. Why do you have to worry about money? Money and art don't, But it's so real. Every month we go through that discussion, among three of us, and I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the hardest thing. As everybody learned, and not many people learned, it's something that we cannot avoid thinking about and really dealing with, and it's really keeping us, awake the whole time for sure. But at the same time, that's kind of why it's so important for us to always know why we're doing what we're doing. So it's not about just running business, but without running business smartly, we cannot do what we believe in. And constantly we're assessing where we are financially, but also where we are creatively. And that striking the balance is just one of the hardest things that I think any studios ever dealt with. I can imagine that's one of the hardest things, and we're kind of learning that hard way right now.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing for me is the contrast of, working at a place like Pixar that's an amazing large studio, where I felt like the peaks and valleys when I was back at the studio, I felt like the peaks and valleys of happiness and anxiety were extreme compared to school or, previous places I had been. And I think that that kind of those peaks and valleys have gotten lower and higher as we've stepped out onto our own. Like anxiety, there's definitely a lot more anxiety that keeps me up and feels a lot more intense. But also the wins are huge. Like they feel like such big accomplishments that I feel like the wins and losses, I feel like all of us are so accountable for. It's not like at the end of the day at Pixar, there was always someone you could point to. Well, someone above me made this decision and I had to deal with it. Whereas here, you can't point at anybody really. Everyone's pointing at you, and I'm always pointing at dice. But I think that's something we signed up for, and that's something we're getting full force. It's like a fire hose in the face kind of thing, where it's just like wins and losses are huge for where we are.
Was it worth it?
I would not go back. I mean, I think it's like college to me, where the things I've seen over the last year are kind of the events that have really shaped how I see the world now. Yeah. And it sounds really cheesy, I know, but you can't go back. It's like it really feels like you've traveled and you've gone on a journey and you've seen things now that hold you accountable and responsible. And I love that. I really do love that. But I'm not gonna sugarcoat things. I do feel like there are moments where you just ask yourself, why would anyone really purposely make a decision to put themselves in a place of pain? But then you turn around and you see the work that other people are doing. We have an animator, Toshi, who has joined us about a year and a half ago, I guess, and seeing him grow and progress is really inspiring. And looking around yourselves and seeing our interns come and go and see how they started and how they went, and see that Tonko House has other things to contribute to the world than just films and projects. It's also extremely satisfying. No complaining here. It's just more like trying to paint a realistic picture of what it's like inside the walls of Tonko House.
Yeah, I remember about a month ago, Robert and I had a talk about, at the cafe, and talking about we have, moments like big exhibition or feature film. All those things are happening, but the real moments of truth is actually lies in our everyday life. And we have to sometimes argue over certain things, and but then we make those kind of hard decisions, and those are the kind of, for me, that's those moments are the highlights of running business. And those are kind of good moments for me.
I'm curious, because Zen worked in many different businesses, but he hasn't really worked. Before he came to Tonko's, animation wasn't necessarily the familiar territory, as far as you told me. Maybe you worked at different places. but yeah, so I think I'm really curious to hear from your perspective how, especially 2016, we did a lot of things, and we achieved a lot of things that a lot of people thought that we wouldn't be able to achieve. In terms of running business of animation studio, how is your impression of this? I'm just curious.
Well, animation, as I expected, is a really labor-intensive industry, and also working on a film is a long-term commitment. So in order to get a project, we need to put a lot of money and time in order to get those kind of jobs. And then once we get it, maybe we'll be safe for, I don't know, we get a production cost covered for maybe a year or two, or whatever that production period is. But those cycle is really big. But in order to be at that point, it's really it's a big cycle. So in order to that's actually harder for the startups, because we have to get there.
We have no money.
We have no money. So that's a big challenge for us. But that's also a challenge for us. Oh, is that the sort of the shape of the business that we want to go after. And that's a kind of constant. We have like on Saturdays, three of us meet every week and talk about the business goals and plans and stuff. And so far I think we have been doing it for a year or 2 years. And I think that is a kind of, for me, the challenge, but at the same time, it's the sort of adventure that I'm kind of enjoying.
Yeah, what's really exciting to me is that Zen comes from the background outside of animation or even film industry, that Tonko's business operation is very out of box. And, also Robert and I, even though we worked in animation for many years, we have no idea about business. So three of us really come up with very out of box approach. And when we started shopping, our projects in Hollywood, a lot of people told us that we're doing it wrong, and we might be still doing it wrong, but at least what's been really fun is to be able to find a different way of approaching this altogether. And we always talk about this, but it's not like Tonko House is all about just film production. We really think of it as a bigger kind of a more wider range business, and that's been really fun, especially with Zen's kind of help from different industry that we are approaching this very uniquely.
Yeah, I think when you say out of the box, I'm always like, oh my gosh, are we? Because I don't know what it's like to be in the box, let alone like what it is to break outside of that box. And I think what is super refreshing about having someone like Zen is that things that we take for granted as just being, well, that's the way it's been in animation for years, and that's the way the big studios do it. To have someone question it from a place of logic and experience in a different field is like, that doesn't really make sense, does it? And then to have to acknowledge, right, we are actually doing that because it's kind of an animation cultural thing and a traditional thing. It's really refreshing to question almost the foundation of how you make an animated film with someone you trust and someone who's objectively trying to do the same thing you are, which is make a great animated film. But having that is like, it forces us to constantly understand decisions that we're making and how they relate to the bigger picture of a business and making something. It has to make sense. So we can't kind of rely, well, that's the way we've done it. That's the way it was done at Pixar. It's like, I think that's one of the trickiest things about a place that is so successful like Pixar is that you're not necessarily always forced to question your processes or the way things work because the results are so successful. And being where we are now, we don't have that pedigree behind us anymore. We're starting from zero and building up, and so it's a great opportunity to actually build it from the ground up and look at animation from a different perspective. Of course, contributing what we know, but also being open to different ways of looking at this problem that many studios are facing. So I think it's really exciting. It's really fun. It still feels like an adventure. Like, it doesn't feel like this is real. Like, oh my gosh, like, it still feels like the honeymoon phase to me, like where it just feels like so dreamy because nothing, I think in the beginning we said we want to do this and nothing so far has really closed the door on us yet. And I kind of feel like somewhere in my mind, that's always a possibility, of course, but it's almost like too, let's just keep making stuff until someone tells us we can't, or until the money runs out, I guess. Until the lights go out.
That could be
happened.
tomorrow.
Our internet's gone out.
But for now, But for now, let's just keep making stuff.
So let's talk about just day to day. Robert, you talked about wins, being big. To let our listeners know, just to paint you a picture, yesterday we ordered 2 MacBook Airs, and there was this text chain or email chain with the 4 of us just celebrating when they were delivered. So that's just an example of, like a small task that you would never even think would even be something that was so victorious, just turning into just the greatest victory ever. So we're in a one-room studio right now, and 2017 we're planning to grow. But yeah, for now it's still pretty small, and I think a lot of people are surprised by that. Is the day-to-day operations of Tonko House. So let's paint that picture.
Well, first of all, every time we have a guest visiting our studio, they're surprised how small our studio is because we use wide-angle lens. But
the tricks.
but yeah, it's pretty tight, and but are we planning to move? Right, to a
We're
bigger
planning to
space.
move, yeah.
Isn't that Zen?
It's in the plans.
Isn't that a plan?
I heard about that.
The day to day. I mean, it's a little bit different from person to person, of course. I mean, three of us have longer hours, just because we, So when we talk about our day to day, like some people get scared of like, oh my God, Tonkaras works so much. So we just have to talk about, for example, Toshi's time versus ours. But yeah, I mean, we start at 8, and usually a lot of people come at 9, but we start at 8 and kind of catch up. Talk about stuff to do, but oftentimes we clean the studio because it gets dirty pretty easily, and it's not like again, we come from big studios where we had cleaning people, but we don't, so we're the cleaning people ourselves. And we haven't done it for a little bit, but we used to always start with meditation. Zen. Oh, by the way, Zen is a Buddhist monk.
He's an ordained Buddhist monk.
Yeah.
So he used to lead us in meditation in the morning to just kind of get us. It was a nice way to start the morning, to get us kind of on the same page, and then we would sit on the floor and discuss like, okay, what do we have to do today? And it was a nice start to the day. But as things got busier, it seems like some of the more important things get thrown out first. Not
should bring
on
that
purpose,
back.
but
Yeah,
let's do that.
Let's bring that back.
But it was a nice way to start the day. Yeah, and then oftentimes we all have different tasks during the day. So I think some of the things are obvious. Like Dice and I spend a lot of time writing and working on the script and working on the graphic novel and drawing and painting and stuff like that. I think that's how we spend some of our days. I think also though we also spend time doing a little more. For instance, Dice does, Zen and Dice both do we have a lot of partners that are in Japan. So Dice and Zen spend a lot of time translating emails or corresponding in Japanese. And I would really love to help, but I just don't know any Japanese. And,
Not yet.
Dice and Zen
Maybe next year.
always...
This year.
2017.
Yeah, they always forcefully try to make me learn Japanese in the most awkward moments. I'm sure Courtney and I will pick up some Japanese by watching some good anime or something. But yeah, and then, but I think it's interesting running our business. You talked about cleaning. Like, it's funny because some tasks are so monumental, like, oh my gosh, we're turning in our first draft of the script. And then some are like, oh my gosh, the studio's clean. It's like, it's like really like it ranges so much. I think in terms of the big and the small and all of that. But we kind of have to do all of it right now. As we grow, I think that'll become less and less, and we can all become a little more focused on our specialities and what we can uniquely offer the studio. But for now, everyone pitches in to get the studio going. And I think one thing also, I think just talking day to day. We do run a long day. I think we run from about 8 to about 7, and we work. The three of us work 6 days a week for the last year, and
not everybody else.
Not everybody, not the whole studio, just the three of us. And but one thing that we've kind of has been this hardest struggle, I think, for us is to also find the balance between family and work, and that's part of our day to day too. And I think that's something that I wouldn't say any of us are great at. I think all of us are trying to support each other, and we have incredible families back home that allow us to kind of pursue our own dreams. But that's something this year that I think we're trying to get a little better at. I don't know how yet. We have to strategize. And it's literally part of the Saturday meeting that we strategize how we make that happen, and how the structure of how we work supports our ambitions, I think, and priorities.
I mean, one thing we've been doing, of course, like you said, it's, we need to do better, but one thing I'm very proud and we want to continue to do is to try to go home to have dinner with our families. 3 of us all have kids that are very similar age, and we try to, the reason why we start early is so that we could go home and have dinner with our family. And truthfully, oftentimes after our kids go to sleep, we end up working at home to catch up things, because there's just so much. But that's one thing I like. I mean, in the past couple months, Robert and I even meet at 7 a.m. When we needed to work with our writer on the script to meet the deadline and stuff like that. But that's so much easier to do if you think we can go home to have a nice kind of family dinner. That really keeps us, I feel like, healthy mentally and physically, and
we should do a podcast with our wives, huh? Everyone will find out the real truth.
Or just wives.
Yeah. They could just complain about us. I think it'll be therapeutic, huh? It'll be therapeutic for them.
Yeah.
It'll be therapeutic for them, but maybe
not for us.
Yeah, maybe not for us. Yeah, but totally. And to be honest, too, we all kind of came back from a bit of a vacation at the end of the year, so I think all of us are feeling great about getting to spend some time with the family. But it's continues to be one of the big challenges for us.
But I mean, I also want to add, the hours are longer, but it's also, the day is really fulfilling.
Oh, totally.
And
yeah.
so,
no complaints.
Even though I think the days are a bit longer.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite feel like that.
No.
As I say 2 months in.
I'm so glad this is recorded. I'm so glad this is recorded.
Yeah. So what are your guys' funniest moments of Tonko House so far?
Last year.
Funniest, embarrassing, just best moments. It doesn't have to be funny.
I do have a moment that sticks in my head that was from Japan when we had the exhibition. We were, in Japan, it's always a packed schedule. We always have meetings from morning till night, and a lot of the Japanese partners like meeting over dinner and drinks after the day's over. Like, a lot of business gets done actually over dinner and late at night. And whenever I go there, I always stay at Zen's parents' house. Zen's parents are amazing hosts. Every morning I have like a homemade breakfast in the morning. To be honest, that's the highlight of going to Japan. Like, I would still go just to get Zen's mother's cooking, because every morning different fish and very classic amazing Japanese breakfast every morning to kick it off. And so Zen's parents are incredible hosts, but also we stay late at night. And I remember this one time we were catching a train back, and we were walking back. We always take a walk back, and it's always a fun time. Like, Zen and I get to spend a lot of time together as we travel kind of just outside of Tokyo, back to his parents' place. And I remember this one time when we were walking back, and Zen's digging through his bag, and he's like, "Oh, shoot." I'm like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "I don't have the key to the house." And this is like what time was it? Like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And Zen's mother wakes up very early to start making breakfast. And I just remember, like, we were outside the house digging around. Oh, maybe there's key under the pot. Oh, maybe there. Oh no! And then it's like, oh, so dreaded. We had to ring the doorbell, and then you kind of see the light turn on upstairs, and then you hear the steps come open, and the door just swings open, and the look that Zen's mom had was like, it's like a mother's look, like, I felt like I was 10 years old all over again. She didn't say anything, right? She didn't say anything. But both Zen and I just looked like suddenly we were 10 years old, head down, walking into our bedrooms, not saying anything.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. That to me was like the moment that was so indicative of, I think, of like where we were at that time. Like, you know, just, yeah, Zen's mother is incredible. Just the power of that look to me, still in my head, it's burned in my head. Like, still I have a hard time looking her in the eyes. Zen, well, how could you forget the keys? I learned the word for keys very fast. Kagi. Every time we walked out in the morning. I will never forget the keys again. I will never let Zen forget the keys again. Yeah.
Did she still make you breakfast the
Of
next
course.
morning?
Of course. Yeah, she never batted an eye. It's really, really incredible. Yeah. That's one story that Zen made sure happened and hurt me forever. You know, there's the well, maybe Zen, you have a story. I think the Tonko House likes to present themselves in a certain, like we like as a company, like for instance, you know, one criticism we got about some of our content is that it's really polished compared to kind of, I don't know, people who put up a webcam and just talk to it, and we like to present that, but also you know, that requires a lot of preparation and stuff. But also, I will say that there are presentations that we've gone to where we're sitting in the car driving to LA, you know, and we have a big presentation to do, and we're sitting in the car, Zen's driving, Dice and I are sitting there, and we're like, okay, so 4 o'clock in the morning on the way to LA. Okay, so what are we going to pitch then? And Dice is notorious always for saying, don't worry, we have a lot of time.
We're
We're
driving
driving
down to
toward,
LA.
yeah, we're driving
6 hours. 6 hours.
We're driving toward meeting right now. We don't have a lot of time. And but in the car as we drive down, you know, and again, it's not so much that we're not prepared. I think we've done a lot of work up until that point, but you know, oftentimes it's those little moments
last bit of
right
it.
before. Yeah. And I get car sick so easily. So sometimes I have to take over driving, and Dice has this amazing skill to not get car sick at all. So he can type notes while we're driving. I think that's his superpower. But yeah, there's a couple meetings, right? We went down and we had a disastrous pitch, actually. Like, we drove down, we were putting together a pitch, we felt really good. And we said, okay, well, let's go do it. And it was a disaster. It was really bad. And then...
they didn't buy our project for a reason. Yeah,
we don't blame them. And then we came out of that meeting and made a couple changes, and then had some of the best meetings we've ever had. Yeah. I don't know that that's a fun story, actually. It's kind of horrific, but it's sometimes the reality of where we are, and several of our projects have gone that way, and some of the best work we've done has come out of clutch moments like that, I think.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's not only once in the car, but
It's
you know, we
only
had like, we were staying at the hotel, we were staying there for like until like 5 o'clock, and we were just like,
oh my god,
working until the morning.
Everyone's eyes are red.
Right.
And we couldn't finish the pitch that night.
Right.
We said, let's go to sleep, get some sleep.
Even just for an hour, right?
Yeah, we slept for 2 hours, and then we woke up and then put together a pitch. But day off, and we had to pitch 9 o'clock in the morning.
And how did that pitch go?
That was
They
awesome.
didn't buy.
They did.
They did. Actually,
Well, they did not.
They
Well,
offered. Yeah, but
it went well.
it went well. I think.
But it was hard because, I mean, to be honest, that pitch alone was like, you know, you and I woke up at 6 in the morning that morning and said, okay, so, you know, we went to sleep at around 4, and then we woke up at 6, and then you and I got together and we said, okay, let's do this, this, and this. I said, okay, great. Let's go over it in the car. So we got in the car, and I was sitting in the passenger seat, right? And kind of going over it. You and I were going over it. And then I said, I can't go over it anymore. I'm getting car sick. Do you remember that? I just can't look anymore at the screen. I feel like I'm going to throw up. So then we parked, and, you know, we kind of collected ourselves and said, okay, let's go to this. But we went into that meeting thinking, like, is this gonna work? And then we started switching it, and then even in the meeting itself, things started to break. Remember that? Like the screen, like our projection on the screen kept going down.
Right.
So then Dice, you had to like
Dice and I were like
fiddle with the
trying
cables.
to fix.
Meanwhile, we're still in the middle of our pitch, like, right? And then like we just keep going, and then there's a moment where I'm like, oh, Dice, you're supposed to take over here. But then I look over, you're still fiddling with the cables. Okay, let's keep going. And then but it turned out really well. It was one of our best meetings.
That's
I think.
true.
Yeah, Robert, we
Robert
used
did a
it.
great
That was
pitch.
awesome. Yeah.
I was on the verge. There's a very emotional part in the pitch, and I was on the verge of like.
You cried actually, and
Yeah, I was on the verge.
Yeah.
My eyes were watering.
Yeah.
But it was more because I was so scared. I was terrified. Like, oh no, we're losing our opportunity here. But yeah, that was a pretty memorable moment this year. I think that was. Kind of, it's like the best. It's such the reality of Tonko House. It's like
I guess
the best
so.
and worst.
That's really the representative of
who
where
we
we
are.
were last year. Like, we had to drive down to LA almost every time, right?
Yeah.
And and stay in the Airbnb, in the same room sometimes.
Yeah.
motel in the same room in
Yeah.
motel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like these little moments, I think all kind of in the moment, I gotta say they're scary, right? Like you just don't know. But looking back, I think we have a lot of fond memories of these horrible.
We can
things.
laugh at it now, but yeah.
Yeah, because we're
a lot
still
of scary
Tonko House is still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
You guys told me this great story about, having not a bad screening when you were making Dam Keeper short, but you felt really good about the screening, and then you put it up and you realized some things were broken, but how coming out of it really was the big push
Yeah.
to
totally.
the end. Can you talk about that process and how you guys face when things, I don't want to say fail, but fall short?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think like I don't know how you guys feel, but there's a point in my career where I really felt like the best laid plans would avoid failure. Like if you just prepare enough, you will be able to avoid failure. And I think if anything, making these films and making these projects and doing these things have actually made me learn that it's not about, planning is important, but it's really about being flexible and not panicking and learning to rely on the people around you to do the things that they're great at. And I think that like the moment that you're talking about with the Dam Keeper, when we went into a screening that we thought, wow, we really figured it out, we're ready to go into production, and then the screening went awful. We brought in a bunch of people that we really trusted to look at the film, and they said, yeah, I don't really get it. They had a lot of questions, and it was really a huge moment for us because it was probably the first time together collectively we felt like we failed, and we just felt really down. But also that what made me so comfortable about moving forward, especially in business and working, with you, was the fact that the next morning we sat down and reconfigured the entire film, and that's the Dam Keeper film that we ended up with. Not to say that that's the best solution, but that it was that we were able to come out of that better and stronger than what we were the day before, and that was the point of the screening. That's the point of failure in a way, and I think it's more about how you deal with failure that's defining than it is about always achieving success. And I think we have gotten better at failing. I would say, like, at least our bounce back is a little better. I think it's always hard because you don't know what to internalize. Like, what was actually my part of this failure, and what could I have done better, and what's the group's failure? What are other people doing? And it's less about that now, and much more of like, okay, we failed. Let's not pay attention to any of that. Let's just pick up the pieces and move forward. I think we're getting better at that as a group, but also it's all in contrast to where we've been. I don't know that we're good at it. It's just more I think we're getting better at it.
I think one thing I can add to that is for me, and I'm pretty sure it's similar to you guys, but the hardest thing to not only do what you want, but also run even if it's a small like Tonko House, around an organization, the way you believe in is finding and admitting that you come up short as a person, and as a leader, or as as an artist, and that's hard. I not that I never dealt with it before, but I don't think I dealt with it in the big way before I came to Tonko House, because I always felt like I had a pretty healthy protection in a big studios, where here, when we had a multiple pretty serious, honest conversations among three of us last year, and that was hard. Oftentimes it was really hard, especially when you have to deal with the reality that you are not who you thought you were, and you have to improve yourself, otherwise this company is not going to last, otherwise your journey would end. And that's different from arguing to defend yourself, because that's the natural reaction normally when you're criticized, but the stakes are so high, and if you don't deal with your own failures in a very honest way, we can't last, so that was really hard, and I know it's probably not going to get easier, but also it's a very humbling learning experience.
I totally agree. It has been the hardest thing that I have to face as well. Yeah, so everybody has different perspective and try to make the company better, and we just have to, I have to deal with my ego and shortcomings, and that's the hard part. But I'm really fortunate that I'm here, that those trusted people will are kind of pointing out those kind of quality. So yeah, that's the hard, and at the same time it's really sort of a gift for me as well.
Thank you, guys. Oh, we all want to give each other hugs right now. Yeah, is there anything else you want to wrap up? Just thank you to all our listeners, definitely.
I think we should talk a little bit about our plan of hiring this year, because we'd love to put it out there.
If you've gotten through this to this point.
Obviously Eric's project is ramping up. It's a small production, but we have 3 animators starting next week. Super exciting. All of them are super, super talented, and can't believe we got lucky enough to be able to get them. But our goal is to start the feature film pre-production team soon, and we have been interviewing candidates for story team and editorial team, and but we are still looking. Very fortunately, we've gotten just incredible number of applications in the past, like towards the end of last year. It was like, I think altogether it was like over 600 or something, right? But does not mean that we stopped, and we'll love to continue to look, and we're still interviewing some strong candidates, and that would be great to continue, so we can build a strong, because the team will be small, but everybody's contribution will be big.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that have reached out to us kind of via email or different channels or some of our social media about working here and the possibility of all of that. And we are a small team, so we do our best to kind of respond to everything, but please bear with us as, we'll try to get back to you as quickly as we can. But, there's a lot of that sort of email and that sort of contacting, and it does take us a little while to get through all that stuff. But we really appreciate the support, both in the community, but even kind of through purchasing products on our shop, or coming to say hello at CTN, or liking our stuff on social media, or sharing our stuff. And it really means a lot to us, because we are a small studio, and that is the way that people learn about Tonko House, is through the community, not kind of the classic way of advertising and marketing like some of the bigger studios do. So we really appreciate it, and Tonko House is small here, but we like to think of our community also as like a large family out there that's helping us to grow. So we look forward to growing over the next year, and we look forward to interacting with you. And we do hope over the next year too to find new ways of interacting with you guys out there and opening up the forum to talk about things and ask questions and stuff. But stay posted. We'll definitely talk more about that through our social media.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah, Happy New
Happy
Year.
It's gonna be a year.
That's inevitable.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye.